The promise in the letter. The morning sun cast its golden light over the hills of Babylon, but to many who lived there, the warmth felt like a cruel reminder of a world they once knew. Among them was Eliab, a young man of Judah, caught in the tide of history, carried far from his homeland when King Nebuchadnezzar's army invaded Jerusalem. Now, in this foreign land, he struggled not only with physical captivity, but with emotional confinement, loss, confusion, and a longing for home. Eliab gazed at the Euphrates River, its waters glistening in the sunlight. It was beautiful, yes, but not the Jordan. The willows hanging low beside it whispered songs of the temple psalms, and his heart ached. Days and nights blurred together. Work felt mechanical. Worship felt hollow. Was God still with them in this place? And if so, why had he allowed this? His thoughts were interrupted when he saw a commotion in the camp. A group had gathered near the elder's hut. Word spread. A letter had arrived. Not from Babylonian officials, not from their oppressors, but from home, from Jerusalem, from Jeremiah, the prophet whose voice once echoed through the streets they now only remembered in dreams. Eliab pushed through the crowd, breath quickening. The elders unrolled the parchment solemnly and began to read aloud. The people hushed. Hope flickered in the faces around him, tempered by weariness. Jeremiah's voice, captured by ink but alive in memory, spoke. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those I carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and settle down. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Eliab blinked. Build? Settle down? Could this captivity, become life? Seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Murmurs swept through the crowd. How could they seek peace for those who had conquered them? Eliab felt anger rising, but the words continued. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Silence. Eliab's breath caught. These were not the words of a distant, indifferent God. They were intimate, intentional, soaked in love and longing, hope and a future. The elders finished reading. Some wept. Others turned away, wrestling with their disappointment or confusion. But in Eliab, something shifted, something that had been dormant for months. It wasn't clarity, not yet, but it was a spark, a small flame in the darkness. That night, he couldn't sleep. He stepped out under Babylon's starry sky and stared toward the west, the direction of Judah, of Jerusalem, of the temple ruins where his faith had once felt so certain. He whispered a prayer, not of demand, but of surrender. Lord, I don't understand, but if you have plans, I will wait. Hey, over the next weeks, Eliab began to do what the letter had said. It wasn't magic, and it wasn't easy, but he planted a small garden beside his hut. The soil was different, the climate unfamiliar, but slowly, green shoots appeared. Life from death, growth in exile. He started helping his Babylonian neighbor. an old man with kind eyes who limped when he walked. Their words were broken, mixed with gestures and laughter, but they found understanding. They shared bread. They shared stories of the past, and maybe, Eliab thought, they were sharing a story of the future too. He also began gathering children in the evenings, teaching them the songs of Zion, the stories of Abraham, Moses, and David. Their voices rose into the air, small but strong. Even in Babylon, the story continued. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Eliab saw a young girl walking alone by the river, tears staining her cheeks. It was Miriam, daughter of the scribe. She was clutching something in her hand. "My father died today," she whispered when Eliab approached. He sat beside her. "I'm so sorry." She opened her fist, revealing a small clay tablet, the beginning of a letter her father had been writing, addressed to Jerusalem. He wanted to send this, but he didn't finish. Eliab took the tablet gently. On it were written the words, "We are not forgotten." He felt tears sting his eyes, not just for the sorrow of loss, but for the truth of those words. That was what Jeremiah's letter had meant. God had not forgotten, not even in Babylon, not even in grief. He turned to Miriam in the way that matters. Years passed. Children grew up. Some elders died. New gardens took root. The people learned to live, not by forgetting their past, but by embracing the promise of their future. Eliab himself grew older, married, became a father. Sometimes he still longed for Jerusalem, for the temple, for the sound of Hebrew echoing in the streets. But the longing no longer suffocated him. It nourished him. It grounded him in identity and purpose. One afternoon, as he was teaching a group of young men to pray, one of them asked, "Do you think we'll ever go back?" Eliab paused, looking at the faces, full of questions, faith, and fear. He thought of Jeremiah's letter, of the promise, "You will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, and I will bring you back from captivity." He smiled. "Yes," he said, "we will, in God's time." And then, one day, it happened. A decree came from Cyrus, king of Persia. Babylon had fallen, and the new king announced that the exiles of Judah were free to return home. The news spread like wildfire. People packed their belongings. Songs erupted at dawn. Tears flowed freely. Eliab stood beside the Euphrates one last time, watching the water shimmer. It was no longer just a river of captivity. It had become a river of growth. The city was in ruins, but it was still home. And this time, he walked in with new understanding, that God's plans were bigger than place. They were shaped by his love, even when his people didn't understand. Eliab planted his fig tree on the hill overlooking the broken city. "This," he whispered, "is hope. This is future." And as the sun dipped low, a breeze carried words through the ruins. Words written long ago, still alive in the hearts of God's people. "For I know the plans I have for you," declares the Lord. "Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future."